Range Rover Evoque has always been the poor man's Range Rover, the model you only buy if you can't afford the real thing. Sure, some people say it's a car you buy if you want a smaller model, but the reality is you generally only buy one if you can't afford the proper thing. But 7 years down the line, Land Rover has designed a brand new Evoque that's so advanced that it might just be the pick of the bunch. One of the biggest reasons for its coming of age is the design. The original car was attractive, but it did have a slightly busy toy-like aesthetic that wasn't necessarily to everyone's taste. The new car has been simplified slightly and looks better for it, borrowing styling tips from the Velar, particularly at the front and rear. However, it is still recognizable as an Evoque, especially in profile thanks to the falling roofline and rising beltline. Under the surface, the new Evoque is based on a new mixed metal architecture, which makes it 13% stiffer. It has more advanced suspension than before, along with better engines. Land Rover promises it can tackle almost any terrain in comfort at any speed and hold its own against any rival. To properly test the new Evoque's off-road skills though, you have to compare it to something truly capable. And what better than against the ultimate off-roaders in a lap around our very unforgiving off-road circuit. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I of course will be driving the Range Rover Evoque, and I'll be up against the reigning kings of the off-road world, these goats. Both have all-wheel drive, both are extremely rugged, but there can only be one champion. You ready? All right, 3, 2, 1, go! See ya! All right, first obstacle, big splash. Ugh. Where are they? Right, goats are crafty. They're actually quicker than they look, these things. I've got to stick to the road, whereas they have the advantage of being able to go vertically up the side of hills and then head first down again. Whoop! Bit out of shape. Whoop! It does like to get sideways. Okay, now I am in the P250 Evoque. This isn't the most powerful, but it does have 249 horsepower, over 350 Newton meters of torque. It'll do 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. That's hot hatch territory. Oh, and it is just lovely to drive. It's got a great balance to it, this thing. Whoa, fully sideways there. I know what they're doing. They'll be taking a shortcut, guaranteed. But I had a few tricks of my own. This car has a couple of really clever technologies, one called active driveline. It's basically a torque vectoring system that can move the torque around from the front to the rear axle on demand. When you're cruising around, it's essentially a two-wheel drive car, but when you start to lose traction, like around this corner, the rear axle fires into action and I get four-wheel drive. And that wasn't all I had in my favor. Adaptive dynamics, another great system on the Evoque. Now every 100 milliseconds, it changes the responsiveness of the dampers. The minute the road gets rough, like out here, or I'm going around a corner, the whole thing allows me to flow with the land, like a goat. This is basically a rally stage. I mean, normal cars can't come up here, not at this speed. Where are these goats? Where are these goats? Come on, baby, full power up here, full power. The gear changes in this thing are just seamless. I've got a 9-speed ZF automatic gearbox. It is like butter. This is a great demonstration to anyone who thinks the Evoque isn't a capable off-roader. Have a word with yourself, really, come on. Yes, here's the finish line. They're still there. I've lapped them. I've lapped them. I've won. Oh yeah. You can't stop progress. I'm the GOAT now. Greatest of all time. The Evoque is an impressively capable vehicle off-road, possibly far more capable than any of its buyers will need it to be. But it's nice to know that when the going gets rough, it really does get going. But This being a Range Rover, the Evoque's off-road chops are only half the story. It needs a velvet glove to match the iron fist. When people think about cars that are very capable off-road, they often make the mistake of assuming they're not very advanced. But that couldn't be further from the truth with the new Evoque, because this thing is absolutely packed with technology. One of the coolest things in here is Land Rover's Touch Pro Duo infotainment system. It's basically a multi-screen setup. You get one screen on the dashboard and another down here on the center console. The lower screen gives you access to your climate control as well as your various driving modes for on and off-road, plus an expanded view of your media controls. The upper screen, meanwhile, gives you access to your navigation as well as your main menu. I'm not gonna lie, it is a bit fiddly, a bit too complicated for my liking, but you can connect your mobile phone and use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. One of the smartest pieces of new technology in this car is a smart rear view mirror system. In the old Evoque, people often moaned about the fact that it was hard to see out the back because the window was so small. Land Rover, though, have come up with a solution. They didn't want to change the shape of the car, so what they've done is they've fitted a camera system that looks out the back, and on the rear view mirror, there's a screen. So you flick a switch, and boom, you see a high definition, wide angle picture of what's going on behind you. Very clever. One thing I've noticed is that quite often cars tend to use technology as a kind of band-aid to cover up the fact that they're not very good to drive. But that's not the case in the new Evoque. This thing is actually a laugh. First of all, that 2-litre engine is a bit of a peach. It loves to rev out. It'll go up to about 6,500 RPM. And as for the gearbox, well, it's an automatic 9-speed unit and it will just get on with things by itself quite happily. But what I've found is I actually like to get involved with the gear changes myself because the car loves to rev out. Not using the paddles behind the steering wheel, but using this stick on the center console. As for handling, well, there is a little bit of body roll, but it's progressive, it's linear, and you can actually lean on the car through the bends. And when you're about to exit, 250 horsepower, well, that's not to be sniffed at. And when you're done, knock it back into auto, relax, and it's a Range Rover again. Now, the new Evoque is great to drive and very high tech, but it also needs to be practical and very luxurious. Why? Because when we think about the full-fat Range Rover, we often think about the fact it's great for transporting very important passengers, footballers, dignitaries, royalty, and this is an area where the previous Evoque wasn't up to scratch. So, we must ask the question, is the new Evoque any better at transporting precious cargo? Kostadina, you okay back there?
Όχι, δεν είμαι καθόλου καλά. Πονάω.
Okay, so Kostadina is clearly heavily pregnant and I need to take her and her unborn child to the nearest medical facility. Okay, so one of the new things about the new Evoque is that it's bigger inside. You've got 20mm more legroom.
Πιο γρήγορα, θα γεννήσω.
Okay, you got more foot room as well. There's
Πήγαινε από εκεί.
What? I don't know. I don't know the way. That's the
Στρίψε
problem.
δεξιά.
Also, I don't know if you fancy hearing this, but there's a new air ionization system, which means that the cabin air is filtered. It's like really polluted outside, but in here it's basically
Πήγαινε πιο
sterile.
γρήγορα, σε παρακαλώ. Πήγαινε βία.
Yeah, you could have your baby in here if you wanted to. I mean, don't.
Θα γεννήσω στο αυτοκίνητο.
Oh, and when you have your newborn baby, there's actually 2 ISOFIX points, and I don't know if you've got a pram or something already, I'd recommend like a Bugaboo or something, they're really good. But in the boot, you've got 591 litres of space, and if you fold the seats down,
Πονάω.
it kind of really makes sense as a family car. With Kostadina increasingly likely to pop right there in the back seat, it was time for drastic measures.
Όχι, δεν είμαι καθόλου καλά.
Okay, I know what you need. You need, I've got these towels here, I don't know if that will help.
Πάρτες, πονάω.
All right. Kostadina's pain shrieking was all Greek to me, but somehow, eventually, I found my way to the hospital.
Τρέξε.
Okay, this is it. All right, cool. All right, jump out. Go. Good luck.
Ευχαριστώ.
All right, all the best.
Ευχαριστώ. Φαρμακείο. Πού πας? Γύρνα πίσω.
I honestly feel good about myself. I basically, with the help of the Evoque, helped to bring a new life into the world.
Είναι φαρμακείο. Πού πας?
Got a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling inside now. On the whole, it's very difficult to not be impressed with this thing. The Evoque used to play second fiddle to the full-fat Range Rover, but I think it's clear now that this new model stands proudly by itself as a car worthy of consideration, not just because of the badge, but because of its capabilities and clever design. It's fun to drive, it's spacious, it looks good, it performs on and off-road, and at around £35,000, it's also good value for money. This is a hell of a car. Sure, the big Range Rover might be better in many respects, but all things considered, to me, the Evoque is arguably the smartest choice in the entire range.
So we would like to photograph the car next to the goat. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.